Never mind. I'll do it again. Hi. Stop. Okay. Hi, I'm the pine.
And I'm the water. And you're listening to A Cup of Tea.
A podcast about exploring life through each other's eyes.
Well, sharing a cup of tea with you. I don't know what happened there.
That worked totally.
Yeah, totally. I love it.
What are you drinking?
So I'm drinking oh Jesus, I almost forgot. It's caramel puer. Puer? I don't know if that's how you say it, but you know.
I've tried puer and it's never been, I have not had one that I like, I don't think.
This one's like, okay. It's not my top thing. It's nothing that I would get, but
what is it anyways?
Puer?
Yeah.
It's like a same sort of, fermented tea leaf, kind of like white or green, but I think it's like reddish, which kind of reminds me of rooibos, but it doesn't taste anything like it. And this one's a caramel one, which I didn't buy it. It was like a thing I won at a bar contest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I have it, and I have a ton of it. Like my jar is full of this because this is the second time I've had it, and it's not that bad.
I mean, if you don't think it's that bad, then I guess it's good that you have a ton of it.
Yeah. How about you?
Oh, my very lovely, one of my favorites, London Fog.
Nice.
I don't know if I've talked about London Fog before, but I really like it.
Yeah, I think we spent like half an episode last time talking about London Fog and tea and whatever.
And how Tim Hortons doesn't have it here.
Yeah.
Freaking Quebec.
I keep getting distracted by that like hair thingy that you have going on. That is
it's because I had it in a bun. Yeah. It was in a bun and it's all messy and I'm like, what do you do?
It's kind of hilarious though. Like, it reminds me of the thing that happens whenever I cut my hair, which I did recently, and I'm very happy because it didn't happen. So like the last times when I would cut my hair, immediately like the next week or something, it would be straight except for like the out flare thingy, and I hated it so much.
I am not a fan either, but I'm like, because I had it in a bun. And then I was like, you can't even tell that I have it in a bun because of the headphones.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just put it in a bun. I like it in a bun. I am so happy that my hair is at a length where I can have a bun, even if it's a tiny baby bun. But I'm just a fan of the bun.
Yeah. So after this brief detour, I have no idea what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
And I don't know where this is going to go.
I don't know either. I mean, I don't know what to talk about because it's something that, oh, Jesus, I've been having in my head for like ever. Okay. So we have this other project that it's like a podcast of mine.
Yes.
And for that, I started reading Women Who Run with Wolves, and if you don't know, or for anyone that doesn't know, the book is very much about like the womanhood journey, kind of like journey into your own woman self kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I have thoughts.
Wait, as a parenthesis, I just like when you said to me that you were reading that book, I was like, that is such like if I had to describe you in one sentence, that's like a sentence I would use.
That's hilarious.
But I mean, maybe I would switch it up by tigers, but
yes. Is that coming only from like the title of the book or knowing what the book is about?
No, just with the title, like knowing nothing else.
Yeah.
That's like a bio.
That's adorable. I'll take it. I'm a fan. Yes, lady that runs with tigers for sure. So ever since then, because it goes into all of this kind of womanhood situation, and it's not the book that I want to talk about per se. I don't know how to phrase it, so I'm going to start with a question.
Okay.
And see where it takes us.
All right.
Growing up, what was your kind of, I don't know, because I don't want to sound mainstream and too into this kind of modern topic of gender and queerness. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not where I want to get to. But kind of, what was your sort of self idea of yourself? Like, did you think of yourself as a girly girl or more of a tomboy, or like, did you have any thoughts on that growing up? Because I certainly was very much a tomboy myself, you know?
Yeah. I think I was like an in-between sort of thing. Like, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag, because on the one hand, for example, I remember hating my uniform in school. And because of like,
but this is like teenage if you think about or child
dressing you, which I think is like an important element.
I don't know, maybe child me.
Are we talking like elementary?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, okay, so what I was saying is throughout our entire lives so far, right? I think that we've had to use uniforms for what? It's like 6 years of middle school, 3 years of 6 years of elementary, 3 years of middle school, which is 9 years, more or less. Like a third ish. And so if like half the time you're wearing a uniform, that I think doesn't let you establish like an identity on your own, kind of, you know, except for the one time, like maybe in the weekend where you can choose your clothes or whatever. And I remember a lot of times my grandma would go visit my uncle in the U.S. and she would buy me a bunch of clothes, and they were mostly like
super t-shirts. Girly. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a combination of being a super girly t-shirt with like flowers, and it was pink, and then also being very square looking. Like, I mean, for example, the t-shirt I'm wearing is just like, it's a crop top, so it's very square and it has like no shape. So it's kind of like that, but long, right?
Right.
So it was not like a strappy thing or and I can remember, not exactly, but like the time in my life when I decided that I was going to tell my grandma to stop buying clothes for me because I hated them. And that was a whole thing. She was like, oh, fine, you don't want me to pick your clothes for you? You can choose whatever you want. And I was like, yes, thank you. And I tried to be fashionable, like chic, maybe is what I would go for. Especially because as a kid, I wanted to be a fashion designer, and I loved watching like.
You wanted to be a fashion designer?
Yeah, I did.
What?
Yeah.
This is news to me, people.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to. I don't know if you ever watched like Project Runway and stuff like that.
I have.
I love it. My mom and I used to watch that all the time. And so I had like that sense of style and fashion, not like super girly cute. No, that has never been my thing.
I don't think. See, this is part of that conversation that I was hoping we would have, because I never did have a sense of fashion. You know, growing up, because you know Nicole. Nicole was always like my fashion friend, and she was always the one that knew how to look pretty and everything, even if she didn't try to. You know, that was just like her thing.
Yeah.
And she was more of the artist, and she could draw and she could dance, and that was very much her. Even though I wouldn't say that she was girly, you know, it wasn't. She's know. Edgy. She has her own vibe. Yeah, totally. She's edgy. But I was such a tomboy. I was not. I wish I had some sort of guidance, kind of. but I don't know if I had guidance, I don't know how I would have taken it, because I also was not into authority. So who knows how that would have gone. But you know what's funny? Like, the thing is, the other day, me and my brother were at work and we were talking about gender and stuff because of the things that I'm reading and the conversation we're having. And for some reason, we like looked at our clothes and we were like dressed the same. You know, we were wearing like baggy kind of military pants.
Yeah.
And we had like a hoodie on and sort of shoes, like sneakery shoes, but not pretty, just like, you know, they were for work, they were for like walking on the snow and stuff. And it was like a funny moment, a funny kind of realization of like, we're dressed the same. And it was just because he has told me before that when we were kids, or more like when I was a kid, because he is 13 years older than me. I did not know this detail that he just told me. He says that one time I threw all of my clothes away, which is the part that I didn't know. What I did know is that I told my mom that I wanted to dress all in black like my big brothers, you know? And apparently, so she would buy me more clothes, I threw all of my clothes away, which I was like, just now when he told me, I was like, seriously? I threw all my clothes away? No idea what my mom did. I should ask her. She definitely didn't buy me all black clothes like my big brothers, you know?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I do think that there is a lot of influence in me growing up with them. And my mom not being too involved, you know, it was work mostly. And she does have her own sort of idea of fashion, but it was never mine. So that wasn't something that I could, you know, get into with her. And that thing of someone buying you stuff that you don't like, I definitely had that. I remember my dad would try to give me gifts, and I was just like, no. I remember clearly. I don't know if you remember, there was a campaign by I don't know who or what, but there were these watches, and they were different colors, and you could, like, depending on which color watch you bought, you would support a certain cause.
Yeah, I think I remember.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were big watches, you know. They weren't girly or delicate, you know.
They were super trendy, though.
So I wanted one of those. Yeah, I wanted one of those. And of course I think the green one was for the animals. And I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So at some point I told my dad that I wanted like a big watch. That was my way of describing it, because I didn't know what else to call it. You know, I didn't think of it as a manly watch. I just knew that I didn't want this kind of like girly, delicate looking jewelry thing, you know? And my sweet dad got me this kind of super flowery, big. It was big, you know? So like, it was big. That's what I asked for. It was a big round watch with one of those straps that you could like, that coiled on itself. And you can straighten. It was one of those. But it was like flowery. It was green and everything, you know. It had some things going for it. But I was like, this is so far away from who I am. And it would make me sad. It would make me sad that my dad didn't know what I would like and I wouldn't like, you know?
Yeah. I know. I remember those watches. I wanted one of those too, and I never got it.
I did get the green one eventually.
But I remember that my dad, well, you know, my dad, So he to just like make a point of what I'm going for here is he has, I'm not kidding, I think a collection of like 30 something watches. More, I'm sure there's more than 30. Like,
okay.
And so when I was like 15 or something, I would never. I that was not a thing. I didn't like them. I didn't wear them, and just when they started becoming fashionable, like those ice ones, he Jesus, he got me. I think it was one of those like chunky big watches, but it was not one of those. It was something else.
I really like chunky watches. Like I lived for them.
Yeah, and I remember that I was like, I mean, thank you. but it's that thing, like you have this idea of what you want, and then being, I think, adults who don't know what we're talking about, they're like, I guess this one will work, and then they would just give that to us. But then, and I remember that like around that time of high school, when I had that like chunky watch that I liked, I ended up getting also a collection of my own. And there were a few that I really liked, and I remember very clearly that one of my favorites, I don't know if I got it around high school, maybe like sometime between high school and starting college. It's a unisex watch, and it's huge. Like, it's super heavy. It's blue and white, and I had it, like, that was my regular watch for a very long time, until I switched to, like, Fitbits and stuff. But like, I really liked it. But the moment I got it, I also had this feeling of like, oh, is it too boyish? Like,
you did? You had that thought?
Yeah, because there's always been like this like questioning, I guess, of is my look girly enough? Is it like pretty enough or something like that? And I remember, for example, specifically, yeah, in high school, when most of the day was being in class, going from one classroom to the other. When we left, we had, like classes afterwards and stuff. So I was mostly dressing for comfort. So it would just be jeans and a t-shirt. And I think that's the less creative, less girly look I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, in my life. And it's very different. Like, that entire high school sort of look is very different from the beginning high school look that I had, because I was super preppy when we first started. Like, I think the first semester or something, I would wear like polo shirts, which were fashionable at the time.
Oh, I hate polo shirts.
But now I hate them.
With my heart.
Oh Jesus, I threw them all away. I cannot stand them anymore.
I cannot stand. I was never able to stand a polo shirt. I don't know where. You know what? Like, I don't know where that comes from. But whenever someone tried to put me in a polo shirt, like, like in my body, like if I get so, I have a serious physical reaction to the idea of wearing a polo shirt, and I don't know where it comes from.
No, I'm serious. Like, not to that extent, maybe, but
I do. Like, no.
I find them so uncomfortable now. Like, they're so, like, the fabric is not that soft, and they're like cartony.
Yeah, feeling, they're not nice at all.
And then the neck.
Ew.
No.
I'm just like, no.
But, oh Jesus, and I remember this one day, I don't know if you're gonna, anyway, there was this guy whom I think we didn't like. I don't want to name him.
I don't know if I'm gonna know who it is.
I don't think he's gonna listen to this. But he was like tall, skinny,
let's see if I find out.
Mean. Tall, skinny, mean. There's two options, I think.
I was just gonna say, I have two people in my mind. So I don't know which
one. How do I distinguish between them?
Are we talking blonde hair
blondish,
or non-blonde hair?
Yeah, blonde. And there was this one day
you're talking to.
when I swear it was something like this. I think we had almost the same shirt. Like I was wearing like a greenish polo shirt. And he had like the same shade of green almost, also polo shirt, and I was like, oh my freaking god, what is this?
I think you dislike him more than I did.
I think so too. Anyway, that enforced my decision of never wearing polo shirts again. But they were like, okay, they were preppy. And there's a preppy girly style thing that I had going on. I would wear.
But did you feel like you had to? Like you wanted to be girly because you had to, or like?
I mean,
did you feel
but it was
girly?
Not like, you know, I mean, I felt girly in some outfits. I think there's outfits that are very specifically like, oh, this is so girly.
But that you liked.
Yeah. Like, do you remember, I think I had a major wardrobe transformation coming back from Sweden. And I hate that we always talk about it. Like, I feel like it sounds so presumptuous. Anyway, but when I came back, I felt like I started dressing very differently than before. Like, I would wear a lot more dresses and skirts, and it was a combination of, I think, I don't love the fashion style, like the mainstream American fashion style, you know? I think being like, think of, I don't know, what Lizzie McGuire looked like. or how...
Wow, Lizzie McGuire.
Like, the way people look like on TV shows. Like how, I mean, this is very old fashioned, right? But
I was gonna, like, are we talking modern or like 90s?
But even modern. If you think of a modern TV show and of how people dress, like, I can't even think of what they look like. Because they,
I mean, this is not modern, but like Friends?
No, that's like that's trendy now because it's the 90s. And I think it's sort of, that aesthetic is sort of coming back, and that's being trendy, and kids that are younger than us love it, and they dress. So what is it? Like
but what is the thing that you are talking about?
I'm talking about, there's a European sort of style that's very different from American style of dressing and like aesthetic and clothing and stuff, which I started really liking, and it's a lot more sober and more maybe edgy. I don't know, but I remember, for example, this one day in school where I was wearing this like green dress that I really like, and
the one that I like.
Yeah, and I bought it on H&M, and one of my classmates was like, "Oh, you got that in Sweden, right? That looks so Swedish." And I was like, "I mean, no. I mean, yeah. If you think that H&M is Swedish, then yeah, sure." Long shot-ish. But that's like the style, you know, like urban, neutral, polished kind of, rather than, I don't know, something else. But and within that, I think there's no longer like a direct gender association with it. It's not like, this is super girly, this is not girly enough. And there's times when I know that I feel very self-conscious if I wear something like super girly. Like, I have this white dress that has a bunch of flowers in it, and I don't really wear it that much because I'm like, this is like a little too much. This is not me. You know?
I see.
So yeah. I don't know what that tells you. I don't know what's the next question.
I mean, it's just this whole kind of because the thing that keeps gnawing at me is this sort of what is girly and what is boyish. Like,
I think
not quite that, but like, what does it mean? What does feminine even mean right now, or what does masculine even mean right now? So there's this one episode in Pockets in the Universe where I'm talking to Carlos, who is kind of going through this experience of finding his femininity and wanting to be more girly like, you know. Yeah. And I think at some point in my conversation with him, I said that maybe at some point the words feminine and masculine are not going to mean anything to us anymore, you know? Because if you're coming from this, like, a man and a woman can do anything, you know, what, if because we're talking about clothes right now, you know? So if a girl can wear whatever she likes, and if a guy can wear whatever he likes, what does girly clothes and manly clothes even mean anymore? You know, like I'm like, is it even a thing anymore? Is it not a thing?
I think it kind of is, and I'm gonna take a brief detour that I just thought of. So for this femininity and masculinity clothes thing, I think for one has to do with how clothes are made. And there's this episode in The Office where Michael comes to work on a women's suit, which everybody makes fun of. And it's very clear, like when you look at it, it is very clear that it's a women's suit because of the way
it's tailored,
made. Yeah, exactly. So there's I think a bit of that, of how if you put on a guy's t-shirt, let's say you know
it's a guy's t-shirt.
Yeah, like it's, even if it's medium sized, right?
It's framed differently. Yeah, you know, like guys are a lot more squarey, and ours are made more like curvy.
Yeah. And also, I do think there's a component of attitude and like however you feel with what you're wearing. And I'm thinking of Billie Eilish with this. Who, I mean, I'm not a huge follower of her or anything. I like some of her songs, and I've seen her like on interviews and stuff. And I think she's a funny looking girl in the sense that she has this colorful hair and long ass nails. And she wears like huge baggy clothes that make her look like a rapper, you know. So she's like combining sort of two aesthetics of the rapper look and then the girly nails hair thing, with a lot of jewelry and a lot of like bling. I don't know.
Interesting.
And she doesn't seem very girly, but she does seem feminine to me. You know? And I think there's a distinction there also.
Yeah. What is this distinction of like feminine or girly?
Because girly, I think, implies a bit of childishness. Or it's more...
I was going to say more of like the stereotype. I think girly is more of this like flowery, delicate idea.
Yes.
But feminine, I think feminine could look like anything.
Yes, exactly. Because feminine,
I like that.
Like a power suit, right?
I like that, yes.
Like a boss-ass lady with a power suit looks amazing and looks super feminine anyway. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And then you can have like the stereotypical rom-com star who dresses in flowers and walks like she's floating, and you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that distinction, you know, like that helps me.
Yeah. And masculinity, I mean, there's also I'm going on another direction there where there's, like, for example, my dad. I was having this conversation with him the other day where he was, not jokingly, but he's like that, older generation sort of people. And we were watching something on TV and he was like, I am genuinely curious. Do you know of any show news, like spectacles sounds like glasses, like showbiz news person man who is not gay, like, and he was thinking of gossip shows on TV whose anchors are always like super like girly boys.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I can name one. And so when I think of men who are not that masculine, I think that comes a lot to mind, more than what they're wearing, because they would normally wear like regular average men, but their mannerisms are what convey their femininity, rather than their clothes. Unless you're talking about trans women or something like that.
Let's not. But just because we don't know enough, not for any other reason, right?
Yeah. We would need to have someone who knows what they're talking about.
Exactly. So, from our experiences and the way we see things.
Yes.
Because we found this, girly is more of the stereotype, and then feminine is this empowerment, and whatever you want can be feminine. Because it is a woman who's wearing it. Right? Yes. I guess that's kind of where it comes from. But what's the male counterpart there? Like, is Jaden Smith wearing a skirt masculine? Can he have that sort of a male empowerment where, even though it's a skirt, the way that even though a girl is wearing a power suit, it's still feminine? Can he still be masculine? Or is that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
I know what you mean.
Is it the same for them?
There's a double standard there, in general. I mean, I don't know. It's
definitely easier for us to wear pants than it is for them to wear skirts. Like,
yeah,
it has been. Maybe that's changing.
I just have this image of Outlander and men in kilts in my head, but if I focus again. I think, I don't know if this Jaden thing, I don't know if you saw it somewhere, but I know that no, it's not Michael B. Jordan. I'm mixing people up. The son, Michael Jordan's son, whose name I don't know, has or had a TV show where he does some fashion thingy.
Oh.
And on the spot, like the TV announcement, whatever, he comes out, like he's walking down the street wearing a skirt and heels. And the thing there is that to me reflects like his femininity, because he's going for that. Like, he wants to be feminine, I think. I don't know. That's what I think.
So he's not going for a male skirt.
Yeah, no, he's not going for a male skirt. But I can see Jaden going for a male skirt.
Yes.
Which I think is very uncommon, but that does not mean that it's not masculine. Like, I can see him being masculine
in a skirt.
Wear a skirt, yeah. Yes. Masculine skirt wearer.
Yeah, I think so too. And it kind of makes me think of, even, I don't know if it's funny or silly, but even, like, think of Gladiator and those kinds of movies or series where men are wearing like tiny skirts and they look damn good.
I know.
So like, can that be a thing? Can that be a masculine thing that we do now? Because they do look good.
Like, the thing where also, like, leggings used to be a male thing, I think in, like, 15th century fashion or something. Mm-hmm. All the way to maybe the 16th. I don't know. Yeah, they were. If you watch, I mean, I don't know how historically accurate it is. I think it's like okay, but if you watch the Romeo and Juliet movie from the 60s, all the guys are wearing leggings, and also take a look at even I mean they had breeches on then, but if you look at Outlander, like I was saying with the kilts, underneath them. I mean, underneath the breeches that they wore, they had, like, pantyhose sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, but you're talking about, like, before girls were wearing... Yes.
So my point is...
Pants.
Because fashion evolves, like, I wouldn't be surprised if in 20 years it is perfectly normal to see a guy with a skirt, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Not that it's not normal. I think our question, or at least mine, it wasn't so much. It's about finding this.
Yeah, I know.
Kind of like, even though a skirt is girly, quote unquote, it still can be manly in a man.
Yeah.
And probably manly in a woman. Like, it gets all.
Yeah.
Weird. See, that's what I'm like. What is to be masculine? What is to be feminine? So if a manly skirt on Jaden is masculine, is that manly skirt in a woman feminine? Because it's a woman. See, that's where I'm like, I don't.
I think it depends on the person. That makes me go back to the whole attitude thing, of like what you're trying to convey.
But so in this conversation, there's still a feminine quality and a masculine quality? Like they still exist?
Yeah, I think they do.
So intriguing. I'm just so kind of trying to wrap my head around it. In this whole conversation and thing going on in my head, I started reading another book called something. I can tell you right now. Something about gender. Yes, exactly. The End of Gender is what it's called.
Interesting.
By Dr. Deborah So. And I'm very early in the book. However, what I can tell you now is that, so she goes on talking about how today, we may be going too far to one side, trying to compensate for all the wrongdoing of where we were.
Yeah.
So she's just kind of, from what I can tell from very early in the book where I'm at, she's just advocating that we don't let this kind of over empathizing movement to lead us away from like science, basically. It's kind of what she's saying. And she goes on to explain, a lot of times right now in the media, people are using sex and gender as if they were the same thing. And we're like, when I read that, I was like, is that still happening? Because they taught me that in college, and like I wouldn't think that keeps happening, but apparently it keeps happening. And people are saying sex where they should say gender, and gender where they should say sex.
Well, I can still see that happening, especially in Mexico.
Well, so that's happening. So she's like, science, please, just listen to the science. And not only that, she's a sexologist, so that's where she's coming from. And sexologist turned journalist. And she goes on to saying how, this going like too far over this over empathizing, over including situation, to call it something, is taking away from science, and especially biology, and especially to sex and gender. Like she says that, and I don't know exactly how this checks with the scientists. Maybe someone can tell us that sex because there's I have, at least in psychology, I, or in my groups of people, I have heard how there's the, like, hormonal sex and DNA sex and genetic sex and this sex and this other sex and the other sex, and there's many sexes apparently. And she's like, no, there is not all of these sexes. She is like, sex is not even determined by what's between your legs. It's not determined by the DNA. It's not determined by anything except for your, what's the term? Like sperm or eggs, basically.
Oh, okay. Gonads?
Yes, exactly. It's by gonads. So if you produce sperm, you're a male. If you produce eggs, you're a female.
Yeah.
That's where she's coming from. And I'm like, all right. Like I said, I don't know how that tracks. If that is what the science community has come to understand or not. But that's where she's coming from. And so she establishes that, sex is only by the gonads. That's that. And she says, right now, I like I said, I still need a lot to read from her. But the thing is that she said something that I was like, wait, what? That gender is not a social construct, which I was like, I thought we had established that it is a social construct. I thought that was like the new thing. And she's like, no. And so she says that she will continue talking about this later, and I haven't gotten to that part. But what? Hold on. She has said something. I mean, I have read something about this whole thing. And she says, maybe she will go on to say that there is a social aspect to it. But her point so far is that there is a biological aspect to gender, not sex. I mean, of course, sex, but gender as well. And she goes on to say that because, when the fetus is in the womb and it decides that it's going to go to the male direction, then it starts secreting or producing testosterone, right? And if it's not going to go down that road, then it doesn't produce testosterone. And that kind of influences the biology of the fetus and what's going to become the baby, because like it or not, we do have different sort of bodies, we're made different. So I think that's what she means. And she also goes on to say, because I think she is on the side of the LGBTQ community. Like, I don't think she's one of those sort of conservative scientists that is like, no, you are all wrong or whatever. I think she's just like on that side, but wants to be cautious and be like, let's not go too far so that we're not listening to science. So she goes on to say that there is male and female, and just because there's people that not necessarily fall into one or the other, like intersex people, if you're talking about sex, or non-binary or, sorts like that. That doesn't mean that that she says that doesn't mean that sex and gender are spectrums, which I think it's something very popular to say right now. I didn't know it was something people said about sex, but I guess it is.
I have seen something like that, yeah.
But it is something I have heard said about gender. And she says, like, no, it's still male and female. And just because there is, like, exceptions to the rule, which is perfectly fine, and it's still natural, that doesn't mean that we have to go on and create a whole new sort of identity of the human being. And she gives this example, and I don't know if it's silly or if it's just simple enough, where it's like, just because there's people that are born with one or two extra or one or two less fingers or toes or whatever, that doesn't mean that the human body comes with, I don't know, the 18 to 22 fingers. It comes with 20. We just say that it comes with 20. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm very intrigued about this whole like biological gender, and then, because then my head has just been going on and on about what does it all mean in the gender situation, and what it is, sort of this philosophical, spiritual female energy and masculine energy. So that's what's been happening. That's what this, bringing it to our conversation.
Oh,
this is it.
I think you kind of dropped a bomb in there.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, I'm thinking of this, and we had this conversation before recording that episode with Carlos for Pockets. Mm-hmm. I think I was asking you one time, like seriously, what is it with non-binary people and gender fluidity? I don't get the gender fluid thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm too much of a white cis female to know, you know? But I would really like to understand where that comes from. And what it looks like. What does that mean for somebody that says that they're non-binary, or that they're gender fluid, or whatever they say they are, because I don't get it. And there's a part of me, I think, is very conservative about this whole thing, and so I can really understand, and it kind of resonates with me, this thing that this lady, Dr. what's her name, is saying about the biology of it. Yeah. The biology of it, because I have sort of thought about it that way, like you're either, there's of course that intersex thing, where, yeah, your DNA doesn't match your organs, or your, I don't know, a combination of whatever. And on the one hand, I see that people want visibility.
Yeah, psychologically, I very much understand this whole idea of like wanting there to be a term for you if you don't identify with what's on the table,
Yeah. But also I think people are just like coming up and with like more and more explanations and terms and stuff that is maybe a little bit much. Like, do we need all these like 20 different names for something? Or are we just making them up because we can? And maybe I'm too close-minded. I don't know. But I do think, because of that lack of experience, like a first-hand feeling that somebody else might have, and so they feel validated when you come up and you're like, so I have this new word for what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and this is it, right? And for example, I had that feeling in particular when I was watching this video on YouTube about, I think it's a show where they have like several different people from a specific group, or that categorize themselves within that group, and they have a spectrum. So they have questions of like strongly agree to strongly disagree, and people have to choose what their answer is. And they had one, I think, with asexual people, who were like, so what does being asexual mean to you? And what, and like several questions, and I was like, from your answers, I just think you're a normal person. I don't see what
what's the asexuality in it?
Yeah, because
what would they say?
Yeah, there was this one girl, for example, I think I remember, that said, I just don't want to have sex all the time, and I'm not attracted to people, and like I do like the idea of romantic love, but I don't necessarily want to just have sex every moment of every day. And I was like, that's a normal person. I mean, I have had that experience. I think many people have had that experience. I've talked with my friends about stuff like that. I don't see why that puts you in that asexual category. Identity. Or and then somebody else was saying something like, no, yeah, I do have sex. They were asking, like, how often do you have, or have you ever had sex or something? And I think almost everybody was like, I've had sex. I just don't think it's amazing. And I was like, I mean...
And that's why they consider themselves asexual?
Yeah, I think it would be worth it to take another look at the video, probably. But my point is that from all their questions and the answers that they were giving, there was something like that. And so a part of me was like, so if I took what they said word for word and I applied it to myself, I could also say I'm asexual. But like I know I'm not. So it's like, how, at what point do they define themselves, or they decide that they belong in this category or this other category, and that they're different from other people? Because to me, it just seems like they have not had a conversation with other people that tell them, like, oh yeah, I'm the same. Or maybe they have, but the conclusion that all the people in that conversation have is, oh, we're all the same, then we're probably like this because we're not normal. But there's no benchmark, or...
Right, because normal could like be to not want to have sex all the time. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know, maybe just porn stars are the only people that want to have sex all the time. I have no idea.
So do you think, so now that specifically now makes me think that it's very out of this, oh wow, I'm like, what is happening right now? Because I'm like, does it have to do maybe with like all of the globalization and social media and content that we are, that we're able to get so easily, where we see this idea of what normal is. So then all of these people that don't fit the exact concept of what social media is showing us, then they're like, oh, I don't fit with that, so then I must be this other thing. I don't fit with that thing, so I must be this other.
Maybe a little bit of that as well. And that's kind of an interesting point, because I was just I was editing an episode of Politics, and one of the guys was saying this thing of, we all had COVID at about the same time, and he was doing research about the effects and long COVID and all of that stuff. And he was saying that he found this article that said that some after effects, some effects, like long term or whatever, not necessarily long COVID, but some of the things that might happen to you is that you have shorter attention spans and less lose your fitness, sort of thing. And he was like, I mean, sure, but have you analyzed it from a different point of view, or of maybe COVID is not the culprit of all these things? Maybe it's the fact that we spend all day sitting in front of a computer, what has us with less of an ability to run.
Oh, because of the pandemic? So right? Or I see
because we stare at our phones all day, and our attention span is just enough to watch a 10-second video, and then we're bored. Right? Yeah. It's hard for people now to watch a 2-hour-long movie.
Right, because, the pandemic and COVID are both happening at the same time. Yeah. So maybe what we think is because of COVID, it's because of all the isolation and being, yes. I see what he's saying.
So in that way, I do think there's a bit of that, where there's this multitude of voices that you can come in contact with through social media, right? But there's this also algorithm that tailors content to deliver what you want to see, or what will reward your brain the most, or whatever. So within that, then there's I think there's a bias that maybe you have on, where if you don't feel the way people are telling you should feel, then you're something else. And so you have to categorize that, and you have to like come up with a term to understand it, which I get, right? Of course, that's how language works, and that's how we build knowledge and all of that stuff. By coining new terms and explaining things in a different way. But I do think there's a point where there's too much. And maybe the next thing I'm thinking about is this, what I thought was very interesting in how she phrased it, the over-empathizing.
I think that might be something I'm paraphrasing.
Oh, well, I
guess she said something similar.
No, I mean the word choice, though. I like that, because I think it's a thing of... I had sent you this video the other day that I don't know if you ended up watching or not, but it's a comedy guy who at some point makes this joke about the being overly politically correct and too careful and, being offended by everything. And he was saying that he had this show where he was making a joke about a blind guy, and this blind man was like right in front of him in the audience, and they were having fun, they were laughing. The blind guy
and
was,
someone
like,
else got offended for the blind
and there
guy.
Was this, like, yes, and so it's like,
it wasn't with you. Like, if he's not offended, or if that person's not offended, then what do you have to be offended for?
Yeah. So what is this? Where is that coming from? I'm so blown away by that of this advocating for the little person, but maybe the little person doesn't even give a fuck, or.
Maybe the little person is okay.
He's completely fine with it.
But see, because I understand. I get. But no, I think it's fine. Okay. I think because I've had sort of a similar conversation with my brother. My brother is very much on this sort of like side of your generation is just making up stuff and words and things that they don't need, and stuff like that. And for the most part, I used to just not pay attention, not care that was, I didn't take him seriously. I was like, you're too close-minded, Don't. But, I think he has a point. And I think this over-empathizing thing has to do with the conversations I've had with him. And the way I've talked to him about it, and the way I've come to sort of think of it, is that we were on one side where people are being oppressed, and so many people, if you're not a white male, you were oppressed. And even within the white males, they were oppressed within each other. So oppression everywhere. So now we're having so many movements and revolutions every day, trying to move away from that, where I think the process is taking us to the other extreme, but I think that's natural. Yeah. So at some point we're going to go from one side to the other and slowly kind of push each other towards the center.
I hope so.
That might be my optimistic self speaking. Hold on. Let me plug my computer. Because I want to mention something else that I was listening to, and because now that we're in this topic.
Yeah. Well, we're at like almost 1 hour.
All right.
So that you keep that in mind.
Okay. All right. So like cards on the table.
Yeah.
I was seriously going through like an identity, not a crisis, but like a real identity journey with this whole male-female thing. And because of the end of gender book that I was reading, and this whole thing about biological gender and stuff like that, I was like, what else is the science community telling us about gender? And there's this podcast called Ologies, I think. I don't really follow that podcast. I just looked for something and this popped up, and it was about neuroendocrinology and gender and they talk about how in the animal kingdom, there's a lot that we don't know, that I didn't know about, of like fluidity, and what I remember most is this doctor guy, or I think they are queer. So this doctor, that saying that whenever, I do know some of the nature of big cats,
the girl who runs with tigers and all.
Exactly. So I think it is known to some extent that when there's a pride of lions and the alpha lion, let's call it, has babies and whatever, and let's say that something happens to that male lion and he dies, or I don't know, some other lion challenges him and they win. So the second male lion is going to try to kill and eat all of the baby cubs that were not his, so that he can mate with the females and have his own cubs. So what they were saying is that there are these female lions that if there is no male lion in the pack and there's another male lion trying to come in and own the pack or whatever, she will kind of grow a mane and have a deeper roar to kind of fight this maleness and protect the cubs that her sisters have. And I was like, what? Like,
wow, that's insane. But you know what it reminded me of? I don't exactly know, you maybe know more than I do, but I think there's this fish that is born as a male and then he goes through some metamorphosis.
And they can change genders. Sex. They can change sex, not genders.
Wow, that's crazy.
I do know that there are, differences in the animal kingdom and animals that can do all sorts of things. I was not expecting a mammal to be able to do, and like a lioness to be able to do that. But I'm also not surprised. I feel like in nature, if you're lacking something, it kind of takes care of it on its own. You know what I mean? Yeah. But my point in bringing that story and saying that I was really having like this identity journey, and I was thinking about this whole male-female conundrum.
Are you gonna grow mane after?
No. No, but I was really trying to understand me, where I come from, and this whole male versus female, and me feeling like I grew up being very tomboy and trying to find my femininity in it. And I also, I've been getting so much content lately, like it's insane. My brain is just like overstimulated, I guess. Because I listened to the Alicia Keys book, and it's so pretty. That can be my rec of today. I really liked it. It's so sweet. And she reads it herself, the audiobook, and she talks about how she is also a tomboy. And the way she talks about it, and how sort of empowered and feminine I felt that she is, even though she's very tomboyish, I was like, I can be that, I can be feminine in being a tomboy. Even though now, I talk of being a tomboy, but that was me growing up. Now I feel like I can be girly and I'm okay with it. There's some girly stuff that I'm still not a fan of.
But you know what? I think of, as a parenthesis, whenever you say you're tomboyish, and I do sort of see that, but you're also very girly. Like, especially over the last 5 years.
Lately, I've become more girly, for sure.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was not. And I remember very clearly, I might have said this before somewhere. I don't know if in another cup of tea or maybe in a pocket. But I remember very clearly one Christmas, I was somewhere between a kid and a teenager. It was early days. And an aunt of mine lent me a dress for Christmas.
And I think you said that.
Yes, right? And I put it on and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just cried. But I didn't have any thought process. It wasn't like, oh, I don't feel this way. It wasn't, oh, I don't like this dress. There was nothing in my head. It was just a feeling of wrong. And I cried, And I think I've been going through all of this and thinking how my mom didn't let me be a lot of times because she wanted me to be more girly. And I mean, I had these two big man brothers and I was like, I want to be like them. They look cool. And my mom was like not having it. But my point in all of this is that in this story in my head that I'm trying to make sense of, I got to a point of like, does that mean like, am I queer? Is that like, because I don't identify this way or this other way? But you know what? In reality, I don't. I like seeing myself as a female, understanding that a female can be anything she wants to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just feel like maybe a little bit of what you're saying, where it's like there's so many choices and there's so many labels and there's so many things, where it's like if it works for someone, I think that's the best thing. I mean, but that doesn't mean, and this is just my experience with it, I'm just rambling about it. But just because some other people may need to identify some way, that doesn't mean that I have to identify that way. And if I'm cool being a female who is a tomboy, who is also girly, then that's fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's just
I know what you mean.
Quite the ride.
No, I get it, because it's a thing of I sort of can equate it to whenever there's days when I don't want to dress up, or I'm just gonna be like in shorts and a t-shirt all day, and I'm not gonna do my hair, and I'm not gonna do anything. And then there's other days where, just now, for example, as we were like preparing to record and everything, I was looking at myself in the mirror and I put on a little makeup and I was like, I like the way I look today, and I look very, I wouldn't say necessarily girly or feminine. I just look like very much like me. Kind of like what we were saying on that episode about self-image and how you want to portray yourself to the world and the image that you want to give or send or whatever. So I think it is a lot more like that. I don't think a label is necessary. I don't think that I need to say, I feel tomboyish today, or I feel very girly today, or I feel whatever. I think it's just depending on like my mood and what I'm doing, and because
it's for example, just
you. Yeah, and I can sort of remember this thing of not being super girly or super stylish in high school. I remember there were times when in school, for example, I had to make the practical choice of, I'm gonna wear the like boots, like I don't know what they're called, like Timberlands.
Timberlands.
And be practical, and I'm gonna wear a shirt because I'm gonna go work and do stuff, and I'm gonna like carry boxes and do heavy things that require me not to be in a dress, right? Because that would be very impractical. And so in that choice, there's also this feeling of, I'm not super girly today. Like, I'm not like nice and flowy and whatever. But I still know that in spite of that, and I think there's this very specific memory, I think, of that exact look that I'm describing, and one of my friends being like, I like the look that you have. Like, I like your look. It looks very like, I think like glamping or something is what she said.
I'm a fan.
I mean, sure. I'll take it. Yeah. I mean, that was not at all what I thought it looked like.
I mean, that like boots, jeans, and a t-shirt, that's my go-to. It's like the nicest thing. But you know what? Yes. When I think of the story of the lion, or like, not the story, because it's not made up. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like, apparently it's a thing. When I think of that, it's like, she's still a lioness, if you want. But just because, she grew a mane and she had to change her roar in order to like protect the other cubs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's no need to say that she's different. Yeah. She's still a lion. Yeah. I don't know what this says about us. But
I don't know. I'm this is one of the things where I'm thinking, for example, with editing another podcast, the politics thing, I've had to have conversations with the guys about their self-censorship and the topics that they want to avoid or things that they don't want to say. And interestingly, to me, it's not that they want to be politically correct. It's more like they have a sense of safety, I guess, of like, they don't want to say something that might put their families or themselves in danger, because we're talking about like political stuff sometimes. And I remember this one episode that they were very excited about, where we talked about Captain Marvel. And before I think you listened to that one, right? Or I told you about it or something.
You might have told me, because I haven't listened to that one.
Oh, well, that was the first episode where I was a guest as well as the producer, right? And they were very excited about it because I told them that I hated Captain Marvel. And and so we had this whole conversation about the political correctness of it, and I said, you know what, fuck politically correct stuff. That does not help you have a conversation. That does not construct anything. And I think there is a danger of, I don't know which one of us at that time said that we were gonna get canceled as a joke.
You might.
I mean, we might. But you know what? That also speaks of this cancel culture is so toxic.
I agree.
I mean, and this is very on the tangent sort of the theme today. But I was reading this article about Joe Rogan, and how he was being canceled sort of because of the comments he said about vaccines and some misinformation and stuff. And so, to me personally, I'm like, okay, sure. Don't continue promoting content that has misinformation in it. That does not help anybody. But you don't have to cancel him either. That this canceling thing just seems like the internet version of shunning somebody on a playground. It's like being a bully to. Ironically, in this time of wanting to be empaths and wanting to listen to everybody and advocating for people, and like what we were just saying before, right? You're shutting somebody out because you're not liking what they're saying, not liking. Of course, I know that this is about misinformation and scientific stuff and important public information and all of this, but my point is the fact that you're saying something that might be controversial, or that might be not what everybody's trying to say, that is the correct thing to say, is what fosters this environment of hatred and misunderstanding. And
like with everything, I think it all depends on how you use it. I think I was watching, it wasn't the Jada Red Table Talk, it was the Red Table Talk, the Estefans. And they have an episode on canceling, this cancellation this cancel culture. And yeah, I think they mentioned there something about how it can be useful when it comes to holding people
accountable.
Yeah, holding people accountable, but then it can also be very misused and, wreck people's lives where there's who are you to wreck this person's life?
Yeah.
Like it depends on so many things. But I do think we should advocate for having conversations, that's what we're doing. And all of this and what we've said in this episode is coming from me being very confused and trying to make some sort of understanding of my experience of what I'm going through. And just because I want to, I feel comfortable and happy and I want to find my femininity saying that I am a she, even though I don't find myself sort of girly or stereotypically girly or boyish or, I just want to be me. And I'm okay with being a female and having a vagina. And like, that's fine. But, just because that is my experience, and I find a lot of the labeling in the LGBTQ plus community. Then that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for them, for so many people. And, I want to believe that I'm an ally. I want to believe that if any person who is a nice person, a nice human being, without where I don't care who they like or how they dress or their pronouns, then I'll be cool with you if you are cool.
Yes, exactly. I think that's the bottom line of this whole thing. Also. And it's also I think it's this sort of questioning that I don't know if it'll ever stop. Maybe it stops once we're 50 or something, of like who we are, of this like self-construction of deciding what makes you and all that stuff. And I think there's I think it's kind of funny because we were talking about Will Smith's book last time, and I'm nowhere near like half of it or anything. I'm being super slow with it.
But it's so
there's
good.
There's this part where I was listening to it in the car earlier, and I remembered what we were saying about his style being very much like it's a teachable moment sort of thing. Like the whole book is a teachable moment. And it got me thinking about that formation of our identity and what we decide we like and we don't like, and the questions that we ask ourselves and all of that stuff. But I think that we can tackle that in another episode as a continuation of this, because it's a whole thing. And so to wrap it up, so what's your, I think you said something about, what was your recommendation going to be? The Alicia Keys book?
Oh yeah, it is the Alicia Keys audiobook. It's called More Myself, A Journey by Alicia Keys.
A journey indeed.
A journey indeed. But yeah, I know, like, you were surprised that I said that she was a tomboy?
She does not seem like a tomboy to me.
No, she
seems very feminine.
See, but that's the point. You can be a feminine tomboy.
Yes, I see. I have been taught. After much thought, I was saying that I didn't know what my rec was going to be today. But I have settled on, there's this podcast that I really like. I think the episodes are not that long. I mean, they're like half an hour long. It's called Choiceology. And it's the host, I think is named Kathy McMillan, I think. And she interviews people about, I think it's a lot about behavioral sciences and stuff, and different theories and ideas and stuff that make you help you make better choices about whatever.
Sounds interesting.
And it's really interesting. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I remember this one episode that was the most interesting to me when they were talking about habits and habit formation and stuff, and she was interviewing this guy who had developed an app. He was a professor or something for cognitive something and behavior, or I don't know. I'm sounding very stupid right now, but he was a professor in some university, and he made this app called Stack. Jesus, I am the worst today at recommending this. But the point is that he was making a point of how by having high stakes when you want to achieve something, that makes you a lot more likely to actually achieve your goal. So how he came up with this was that he and his best friend wanted to quit smoking. And they said, okay, whoever fails has to pay the other $10,000. So they turned that into this app that keeps you accountable, which I guess can also be a secondary recommendation. Stick is the name. That's Stick with 2Ks or 3Ks or something. So the idea is that you write what your goal is, and you set up a way to make yourself accountable.
Oh, so I've seen you use it. It. One day I was like, why do you owe $5 if you don't walk Spock or something like that?
Yes. So that was the thing. And for example, I did a workout, every 6-week workout day. What? I'm not making any sense. Jesus.
6-day workout.
6-day, week. 6 days a week workout thing. Yeah. And if I didn't do it, I had to pay $5 to Donald Trump's campaign. Yes. That's the way I was being so lazy, and it was like the beginning of the pandemic, and I think I only paid once. I did, I know. It was awful. I was so, but that's the thing. It made me feel so bad about myself that I gave that stupid ass $5, and I was like, I'm never gonna.
Look at you holding yourself accountable.
So the point is, listen to Choiceology, and if you want to do some habit good stuff, use the app. It's pretty cool.
I feel like it works for some people. Because I'm like, if you're one of those people where it's like, I'm just not going to do it, and you shouldn't really care. It doesn't work. What also
helps is having somebody that also keeps you accountable, because my dance teacher was doing that for me. She was like checking in and being, how's the week going? How are you doing? How's the challenge going? Blah, blah, blah. So that was nice. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Not that you donated $5 to Donald Trump, though.
No, that was terrible. And on that note, we'll see you.
We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for sharing a cup of tea with us. To watch more episodes of A Cup of Tea, click the link on the right. If you want to watch Pockets in the Universe, go to the playlist on the left.